If you remember, the initial public comments policy was requested by the Board of Education to be drafted and reviewed by the Board Policy Review Committee, which also has board member representation on that board committee. That was taken to the board and approved. Since then, at that point, we have received comment from the public about concerns. The board wanted that to go back to the Board Policy Review Committee to be reviewed, and that has taken place. So this is a revised policy that's coming to you today, and Dr. Reger can take us through just a couple of key areas.
Yeah, good morning, Chairman Malone, members of the board. You'll recall the Board General Policy 10, Public Comments Protocol Policy, was approved at the July 12th board meeting, implemented at the August meeting. And at that point, some concerns were raised by members of the public to board members and Dr. Stauffer. So we were asked by board members to revisit that, and we did at the August 19th Board Policy Review Committee. In essence, the proposed policy includes 3 changes that address many of these concerns. First is the number of comments that would be accepted, and that increases from 10 to 20. The second is the access to signing up. The initial policy was an online only method of signing up to present public comments. We expanded that in 2 ways. We also have the ability for folks to visit the Northgate office and fill out a paper copy of the pre-registration form. And if we do not reach the 20 by the board meeting, an hour prior to the board meeting starting at the typically Tuesday evening or Tuesday afternoon meetings, people can sign up in person. The initial policy said no in-person signups, but we are amending that to allow these in-person signups to get up to the 20 if we're not already there. And finally, the third change deals with if we are over 20 signups, going from a random draw to a first come, first serve. So that's our 3 proposed changes that were vetted by Board Policy Review Committee. Again, board members present at that meeting, and that's the proposal we have in front of you now.
Yeah, Ms. Sithowski, myself, and Mr. Murray are on Policy Committee. Mr. Murray was out of town, but Mr. Palmer attended the Policy Committee meeting as well. Speaking to this, I think it's Mr. Palmer said it well in an email to me. We put this policy in place with the best of intentions to keep our business meeting moving. We heard public feedback on it, and we heard them. And so we reconvened the Policy Committee, put this together, hoping to approve it today so it will be immediate and useful in our September meeting. I didn't want to come to September meeting and approve this and say, but we still have to use the August Policy Committee. So trying to make this more expeditious for everyone. And it's not a perfect policy, but I think we've hit the highlights that were the hot buttons for folks. So I'll leave it at that with my comments. I support it, obviously. Anybody else have any input certainly is welcome.
Jean, I do.
Go ahead, Ann.
Jean, I do. I was confronted by a couple of people the other evening who are extremely against this policy. And my comments to them was, you need to be in our position. And our position was sitting on the stage and watching what happened at the March meeting. And I have told each person who has told me that they are against this policy, that before they are against this policy, they need to put themselves in our position, pull up the board meeting, and look at the women sashaying around the room with the signs. One man walking around with the microphone as if he were an entertainment person. They need to look at the meeting as we did from the stage before they criticize the policy that we made. But I haven't heard back from any of these people.
Mrs. Lewis?
I definitely appreciate the policy going back to be reviewed. As someone who had an individual show up to speak and was told that they, couldn't speak, and there were no way for certain individuals to, number one, I don't feel we promoted it enough for the community to know, especially our non-savvy individuals with computer and internet. I don't feel that we gave enough notice or opportunity for those individuals to have a chance. So I am definitely pleased with the other accommodations that we have put in to this policy. So I greatly appreciate the revision of that.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments?
I think,
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
go ahead, John.
Uh,
One of you
Go ahead,
go.
John.
All right, Gene, I think we've made some improvements on this policy. I like what we've done so far. I think at a later time, I will still be introducing another amendment to it. Two questions that I have was, one is the place on the agenda. Are we going to be sitting through 2025 remarks before we conclude the board business? Or are we going to move the public comment section?
I think we probably, but this is my thought, I think we should talk about that after we vote on the new policy, because it's not in our policy as to where public comment would be on the agenda. So if that's okay, let's get through this and then we can talk about where public comment goes on the next agenda. Is that all right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that'll be fine. The other question was, resident of Wicomico County. Have we had problems with this before?
Yes.
I think we have, and so, but there also, you don't have to be a resident if you have like children in the school system, right?
Or a
Um,
teacher in the school system.
Yeah, parent, guardian, a student currently lives outside of the county, that type of thing. What we were trying to do was limit it to folks who have a stake in Wicomico County's public education for public comment. So, but I think we've covered all the bases in terms of how people can still speak.
Gene, as I understand it, the two men in the March meeting who had the recorder and the two women with the signs were residents of Somerset County.
Yeah, I don't know. And we used to ask for them on the form to fill their address out, and then lots of folks did not, which, when I got the papers, it was there, so we still allowed them to speak. So we just tried to tweak that a little. I haven't had any pushback from folks about that. It was mainly the pushback I got, and I spoke to people by phone and email, was the number. The pre-registration was fine, but we also need walk up if we don't get full. And there's no place for random drawing and signing up for comment, which those were the things we fixed. So to Mr. Palmer's point, we may need to amend it later. We may need to look at it again, which that's what we should be doing as a board, is reviewing these things as they come along. But I think this gets us to a good place for, at least for now. We can try it in September's meeting and see how it goes. Any other comments?
Yeah, I was only going to say that I believe that research was done indicating that other boards of education on the Eastern Shore were doing something similar to this. And secondly, I think it's good that we went back and looked at the comments that were made and tried to address some of those.
Yeah, they did a lot of research, and we had county policies from all around. And frankly, 10 is probably, the number was probably okay if you average it over time. But as the people I talked to said, yeah, it sounds that it's okay, but 10 sounds small. So if you say 20 and you don't get 20, you haven't heard anything, but at least you know the topics and the maximum number. So I agree. We needed to relook at it. Okay, I assume you're ready to vote. I'll just call your name because it's Zoom. I'd hear all eyes. So Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. Sutowski,
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Ms. Lewis.
Aye.
Who have I forgotten? Oh, Mr. Fitzgerald. Is he waving aye?
Yes,
Aye. And Mr. Malone, the chair votes aye, so it's 6 ayes. And there would be no nays because there's only 6 of us. Okay, so this will be effective immediately and we'll be able to use that in our September 13th board meeting. So now if you want to discuss, it's not on the agenda, but I'll use my chairman of the board authority. Mr. Palmer had suggested in the same policy committee meeting that we move public comment to the end of the agenda like the county council does.
Excellent.
We all said that was a good idea at policy committee.
Yes.
Having thought about that, I'm not sure. I think it's a good idea, but I'm not sure we want to do that in September when we're rolling out the new public comment policy, because my thinking is, are we just looking for a problem where there isn't one? I mean, we change the public policy comment and then we move the comments to the end of the agenda. I just don't want any other issues to be brought up in September about that. I mean, maybe it doesn't make sense to you, but I'm saying why not try that in a later month after we see how this public comment policy works in September?
I'm for doing it in September, Gene. If the people are interested enough to come to voice their opinion, I think they should be interested enough to stay for the whole meeting. And I think it's rude for them to walk out.
And I think it should be a consensus of the board. So that's why I wasn't going to make that decision. I know, Mr. Palmer, that's how you feel, right?
Correct.
How about Mr.
If John,
Brown?
if John will make a motion, I will second it.
I don't know if we need to make a motion
I
or
don't think we need a motion.
just a consensus. Like, Mr. Brown, how do you feel?
okay with that.
Ms. Lewis?
I think you're going to have people complain either way, but I do agree with Miss Ann. The individuals, if they have a vested interest to come to the meeting and want to know what we're doing, they should not be coming to complain and badger us and then get up and walk out. They need to be able to stay and know everything that we're going through and what we're doing so that they understand the board's process, not just jumping on the complaint train.
Well, and I know Mr. Palmer and I talked about this at the policy committee. We're looking at trying to make sure we get the business done and then we do public comment so they get our full attention. And in my case, I'm not thinking about, okay, what's the next agenda item? And it does mirror the council's agenda,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So we have 4 people that want to do that. So that's really all we need for a consensus.
Sorry, Gene, are we going to be putting this out there with significant enough time for people to know about it and not be shocked when they come and it's at the end?
That's
Well, they got 2 weeks.
that would be that was my next point. We can do this for the September meeting and we got a consensus to do it.
Yes.
But I want to make sure that it gets out there, even if it has to be a press release, to make sure people don't come, as you said, and they're caught off guard. They need to know ahead of time that when you come to sign up an hour before the meeting, if you want to, you're going to have to wait till the end on public comment because we're trying this to move our business meeting along just like the county council. That's fine.
Gene, we put information out on social media and our website as well. It may be something where, since this is directly involving the agenda of the business meeting of the board, that we could get something together and then send it out to each of the board members, and you can get some feedback to us regarding that.
Okay, yeah, because I think, well, we're 2 weeks away from today. So if we, honestly, it'd be nice if we got it out before Labor Day weekend, because after that, people sort of do things. I just want to make sure, to Tanya's point, that we make sure the public is aware, because the public comment policy, it was out there, I agree, but if some people weren't aware.
It could have been better.
Yeah, I just want to make sure they know both of these items so
Are
that
we
there's
meeting
no
at Long
surprises.
Avenue? Are we
Yes.
meeting at Long Avenue?
Yes, we're going to stay at Long Avenue.
Very good.
Okay,